One of the most important factors in becoming a truly successful professional wrestler who is genuinely loved by the fans isn't just championships or how many times you've main event. It's knowing exactly when to walk away. Sadly, not everyone can accept that their prime is far behind them. Some legends keep trying to cling to the spotlight, even when the crowd no longer explodes the way it used to whenever they make their entrance. What they do in the ring no longer matches the expectations attached to their name, and the fans' emotions slowly shift from excitement to concern, even to the point of quietly wishing they'd get one clean, dignified final send-off worthy of their legacy. Today, we're going to talk about names just like that. Let's get started right now. Wrestling Sphere, go! Number 15. Jerry, the King, Lawler. Jerry, the King Lawler is the kind of legend who always gave you the feeling he'd be around forever. For decades, the crown, the signature laugh, and his mischievous personality became an inseparable part of WWE. That's why, when Lawler suffered a heart attack right after a match on Raw in 2012, the wrestling world collectively held its breath. In that moment, a lot of fans were forced to realize, the King is human too, and his health can't stay untouched by time forever. From then on, the calls for Lawler to hang up his boots and end his in-ring career started to get louder. To most viewers, the safest call was for him to step fully behind the scenes and enjoy the glory he'd already built, instead of risking his life with bumps he didn't need to take anymore. But Jerry Lawler saw it differently. His love for wrestling was simply too strong for him to just wave goodbye and walk away. After the heart attack, the King still worked a few matches each year, mostly on the independent scene, where the lights weren't as bright as WWE, but the cheers and the feeling of standing between the ropes were still there for him to soak in. As for WWE, the company clearly no longer felt comfortable putting him in major televised matches. Lawler stayed at the commentary desk, remained a familiar face to the fans, but the door to wrestling big-time matches on their shows seemed firmly shut. Even so, inside him, the desire to have one last match never really faded. Lawler has repeatedly tried to convince WWE to give him one more bout, even suggesting a rematch of his WrestleMania 27 showdown with Michael Cole, or at least one final appearance at WrestleMania before he officially says goodbye to the ring. What about you? Do you think Jerry, the King Lawler, deserves one last match in his career, or is it finally time for him to truly rest? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Number 14. Vader. At the peak of his career, Vader was the perfect embodiment of what a big man in pro wrestling is supposed to be. A massive, thickly built powerhouse with footsteps that sounded like sledgehammers, yet he moved with shocking speed for his size. He could climb to the top rope and crash down with a splash like a falling truck. The moment his music hit and that iconic mask appeared, everyone in the arena knew they were about to witness pure destruction. It didn't matter if his opponent was tall or short, technical or power-based, Vader always found a way to turn it into a brutal war. Precisely because he was once that terrifying, the final stretch of his career felt even more bittersweet for many fans. Long after his prime had passed, Vader kept taking bookings for various promotions, including Impact and Rev Pro. But by then, his body simply wasn't cooperating the way it used to. His movement slowed, his strikes didn't land with the same snap, and his heavy breathing under the lights became hard to ignore. Matches he once could have turned into instant classics sometimes turned into a struggle just to keep things flowing and avoid looking too awkward in front of the audience. For fans, the emotions around these late career appearances were complicated. Part respect, part worry, and a touch of sadness. Everyone understood how deep Vader's love for the ring ran, so nobody really had the right to dictate when he should stop. Still, it was hard not to wonder whether he was sacrificing his own health just to hold on to that feeling of standing in the middle of the roar for a little longer. Even so, those weaker performances at the end were never enough to erase the image of the flying destroyer who once dominated everywhere he went. In most people's memories, Vader is still the airborne wrecking machine, the monster who commanded respect from generations of wrestlers. Maybe what fans regret the most isn't that he kept wrestling, but that they never got to see a truly perfect farewell match, worthy of a legend of his size and impact. Number 13. Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash was one of the defining faces of the 90s, a true cornerstone for both WWE and the glory days of WCW. With his towering height, laid-back, too cool to care attitude, and calm but imposing movement, Nash always gave you the sense that just lifting a boot or raising an arm was enough to change the whole feel of a match. But once the 2000s rolled around, time and injuries started leaving clear marks on his body, and fans gradually felt that Big Daddy Cool just wasn't the same force in the ring anymore. His 2002 to 2003 WWE run is the clearest example. What people saw wasn't the explosive giant from years past, but a wrestler trying to hang on to every step he took. His matches drew more criticism than praise. The pace was slow, his burst of power wasn't there, and injuries kept piling up like they were collecting on a debt from all the punishment he'd put his body through before. The crowd shifted from excited to worried. Every time Nash took a bump, you could almost hear people hold their breath. After leaving WWE, Nash signed with TNA. There, he still had a few decent outings, using his ring IQ to make up for what his body could no longer do. But most of it rarely went beyond fine, watchable. The general feeling was that Nash was sticking around more for the paycheck than because he had anything left to prove. In 2011, he went back to WWE one more time, hoping to close out his career on a stronger note, with the most memorable match being that strange ladder bout with Triple H at TLC. It wasn't outright awful, but it wasn't easy viewing either. Every climb up the ladder, every fall, showed just how hard Nash's body was fighting to keep up. Nash later admitted on his podcast that it was an incredibly exhausting experience. He said he'd never worked that kind of match before. His knees had already been through a ridiculous number of surgeries, and Triple H was juggling both performing and running the entire show. They only had a few minutes to go over things in the ring before the doors opened and fans came in. In Nash's mind, that was his last real match. And yet, even after that so-called final bout, Kevin Nash still made a few more appearances, entering the Royal Rumble and working some independent dates, leaving fans both respectful and quietly hoping that one day he really will decide to stop for good. Number 12. Big Show. A former world champion and a TV fixture for nearly 3 decades, Big Show has always been among the most respected names in WWE. His massive frame, instantly recognizable face, and ability to flip between babyface and heel over and over made him an unforgettable part of many fans' memories. But there was a very awkward stretch in his career when that once-beloved name suddenly became the target of chants, basically urging him to call it quits. The problem wasn't that Big Show suddenly fell off a cliff in terms of performance. It was how WWE used him. His character was written in a repetitive way, his stories felt recycled, yet he was still presented week after week as one of the big stars of the show. Meanwhile, fans were craving something fresh on Raw and SmackDown, newer faces, different styles, a change of pace. The gap between how the company framed Big Show and how the audience actually felt led to those now famous arena-wide chants of, "Please retire," every time he walked down the ramp. It got to the point where Big Show said people would approach him in real life and bluntly ask, "So, when are you retiring?" For many, that sounds brutally harsh, especially directed at someone who had devoted almost his entire life to the business. But Big Show chose to look at it from another angle. In an interview with the Mirror, he said he took it as proof he was doing his job as a villain. He was annoying the crowd, getting under their skin so much that they just wanted him off their screens. He also pointed out that most of those chants were simply fans playing along with the atmosphere of the show. Away from the cameras, the people he met were respectful, grateful, and thanked him for all the years of entertainment he'd given them in WWE. In his view, "Please retire" wasn't purely a demand to kick him out, but part of the performance, another emotional layer he, as a veteran, had to accept and then fold back into his own story. Number 11. Goldberg. When Goldberg suddenly returned to WWE in 2016, most people assumed it was a simple, one-night-only type of deal. He'd show up, face Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series, and that would be it. Instead, he trucked through The Beast in just a few minutes, a short match that packed in everything fans once loved about Goldberg: power, speed, decisiveness, no wasted motion. It felt like a nostalgic salute to an older generation of fans, not the start of a brand new chapter in his career. Interestingly, right after that match, most viewers felt satisfied. They were happy to see the old monster come back, look every bit like the unstoppable force they remembered, and then close the story on a high note. Very few people honestly expected, or wanted, Goldberg to stick around long-term, let alone become a regular contender for the world title scene again. But WWE, and Goldberg himself, went in the opposite direction. Instead of stopping at that perfect ending, Goldberg kept coming back, again and again. He repeatedly entered world title programs, picked up more championship wins, and even beat names who were in the middle of being built up, like Kevin Owens and The Fiend, Bray Wyatt. Those outcomes left a huge chunk of the fanbase deflated. To many, Goldberg no longer looked like a beloved icon from the past, but more like an obstacle standing in front of the new generation. Worse yet, his later matches were often extremely short, lacking drama, and at times looked downright risky. His age, physical condition, and smashmouth style meant that every time he botched a move or took an awkward fall, the crowd held its breath for the wrong reasons. Instead of pure hype, people started watching with tension, wondering if something really bad might happen. Slowly, the name that once drew loud, unanimous cheers turned into a lightning rod for online arguments and frustration. If Goldberg had ridden off into the sunset right after that 2016 comeback, his image might have stayed locked in as a fully respected legend with the perfect final act. But by continuing to appear, constantly being slotted into top positions, and repeatedly winning major titles, he unintentionally wore down a lot of the goodwill he had built. His legacy is still there, no doubt, but in the eyes of many, it now comes with an extra layer of regret, because he never chose that clean, well-timed ending he seemed to have in his hands. Number 10. Kane. For many years, Kane was the kind of name you could plug into any era of WWE and he'd never feel out of place. From the days of the masked monster walking out through walls of fire, to the times he played partner, enemy, or the dark shadow behind other top stars, Kane always knew how to make people pay attention the second his music hit. That towering frame, the slow, menacing walk, and the gloved hand raised to summon the flames were the stuff of nightmares for an entire generation of fans. But like every legend, time eventually caught up with him. In the final stretch of his career, the excitement around Kane being involved in major WWE storylines wasn't as intense as it once was. That feeling was especially strong during the stretch when he took off the mask, put on a suit, and became Corporate Kane, a character who acted more like a company official than an emotionless monster. The way he was presented made him feel like a dry bureaucrat, not a bringer of terror. His matches from that period often came and went without leaving much of an impression. The live crowd reacted lukewarmly, and sometimes it felt like they didn't even know how they were supposed to cheer for him. The contrast between the fiery attitude era version and the shirt and tie Kane left a lot of people disappointed. They still respected everything he had done, but quietly hoped he would choose to bow out at a high point instead of continuing to show up in half-hearted stories. In recent years, the Devil's favorite demon has stepped away from the ring, turning his focus toward politics and work outside of wrestling. Given his age, physical condition, and everything he's already given, that's probably the most sensible move. Even so, Kane has never completely slammed the door on a return. He's hinted more than once at the possibility of walking through the smoke again, letting the church bell toll and the red flames roar one last time. If that day ever comes, fans will only hope he can deliver one complete, well-executed match as a true farewell, a proper goodbye worthy of the legacy he left in WWE. Number 9. Ric Flair. For a lot of fans, WrestleMania 24 felt like a dream ending for Ric Flair, a farewell so beautiful and emotional that few believed it could ever be topped, let alone undone. That night, he stepped into the ring with a body that had clearly been through wars, but with the aura of the Nature Boy, who once ruled the wrestling world. His opponent was Shawn Michaels, one of the greatest in-ring storytellers of all time. From the looks, the gestures, all the way to that moment where Shawn said, "I'm sorry, I love you," before delivering the decisive sweet chin music, everything played out like it was written to be the perfect last chapter of Flair's in-ring career. He even stated clearly, this would be his final match. But as we all know, that wasn't the full stop. Not long after, Ric Flair made the controversial decision to lace up the boots again in TNA. If WrestleMania 24 showed a legend walking off the stage with his head held high, then his time in TNA mostly showed a man who had pushed far beyond his own limits. Slow pacing, strikes without much snap, a body clearly struggling to absorb punishment. Many of Flair's matches there were criticized as hard to watch, leaving people more heartbroken than hyped. Fans could easily accept Flair appearing in TNA as a manager, a mouthpiece, or a legendary figure standing beside the younger generation. But seeing him still wrestling, sweating, and taking bumps like he was decades younger was something almost no one really wanted anymore. Simply because they had already gone with him to a near-perfect ending at WrestleMania 24, where his career felt framed by maximum respect. It seemed like, after that run, Flair would finally let the past rest. Then in 2022, he pulled everyone back in with a Ric Flair's Last Match event. The name sounded like a firm promise, but with someone who has said, "I will never retire," more than once, people weren't exactly convinced. Some fans were genuinely excited to see him go all out one more time, but right alongside that excitement was a very real sense of fear. Could a man at his age still physically handle it? All anyone can really hope is that this truly was the final chapter of Ric Flair in the ring, so that his legacy as a 16-time world champion stays intact, rather than being stretched out through matches that make viewers spend as much time praying for his health as they do enjoying the performance. Number 8. Mick Foley. Unlike many other legends on this list, Mick Foley has always been surprisingly clear-eyed when it comes to looking back at himself. As early as the 2000s, he had already tried to close the book on his career with a match that was promoted as his final appearance. But in true Mick Foley fashion, that door never really shut. He kept coming back over and over, and in between the occasional classic, there were plenty of forgettable outings that fans watched, and then immediately moved on from. After the blood-soaked war with Edge at WrestleMania 22, a lot of people believed that should have been the perfect final stop for Mick Foley in WWE. It was exactly the type of match that comes to mind when you hear his name. Reckless, wild, telling a story with his own body. It's hard for anything that came after to surpass the emotion and brutality he and Edge created that night. But Foley didn't stop there. He continued to accept new appearances, returned to WWE in different roles, and even went to TNA to burn through a few more chapters of his career, written, as always, in sweat and scar tissue. What's interesting is that Foley has never been naive about how people feel. He knows very well that a portion of the fan base wishes he had quit sooner, so their memories of Mick Foley would remain forever sharp and fiery, like during his peak years. On his podcast, Foley has openly admitted that if he could rewrite history, he'd give himself a much cleaner ending. Come back one more time to face Randy Orton, have a tag match teaming with The Rock, and then close it all after the brutal classic with Orton at Backlash 2004. In that ideal version, he wouldn't extend his run past WrestleMania 2000, wouldn't keep popping up here and there, and wouldn't leave behind so many returns that even he now feels probably should have never happened. From the outside, Mick Foley's post-2000 journey can leave fans feeling both love and regret. Love, because every time he walked out, even with a body that clearly wasn't what it used to be, that all-or-nothing spirit was still there. Regret, because he absolutely could have stopped at a truly legendary milestone, instead of letting his career drag on with matches he himself later admitted were better left undone. Maybe that's exactly who Mick Foley is, though, always willing to burn just a little bit more, even when he knows full well what that extra flame will cost him. Number 7. Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan is almost the clearest example of a legend who simply didn't know when to stop. As early as the 2000s, a lot of fans were already saying it was time for Hulkamania to rest, but Hogan either didn't hear it or chose to ignore it. He kept wrestling, kept showing up in top spots, from WCW to his return to WWE, as if the spotlight itself was the oxygen keeping him alive. In 2002, Hogan even won back the WWE Championship in what many jokingly called the Nostalgia Train run. Crowds were on their feet, yellow shirts and red bandanas filled the arena again, and his match with The Rock was a rare, explosive moment, a true passing of the torch between eras and a heartfelt tribute to an icon long past his peak. The problem was, outside those emotional snapshots, Hogan's in-ring ability no longer matched the position he was booked in. Instead of walking away on that high note, Hogan kept taking big matches, facing Shawn Michaels, then Randy Orton, and the most controversial part was that, in most of those bouts, he was still the one having his hand raised. Seeing a past-his-prime name constantly going over rising stars rubbed a lot of fans the wrong way. They weren't just questioning match quality. They felt like the future of newer talent was being held back just to protect the oversized shadow of Hulk Hogan. Worse yet, more than a decade after fans had loudly started calling for his retirement, he extended his career in TNA. His appearances there, especially the infamously bad match with Sting, only reinforced the feeling that Hogan had gone far beyond what his body could reasonably handle. Instead of a legend bowing out with his head held high, his in-ring image during that period often left people watching with a sigh. It seems that, due to health issues, Hogan eventually had no choice but to truly hang up his boots. But with someone who spent his entire life under the lights, nobody can say with absolute certainty that Hulk Hogan won't one day get the itch again and find some way back, even if it's just in a role that puts that name in front of a roaring crowd one more time. Number 6. The Undertaker. The Undertaker is the kind of legend many people thought would never really leave the ring. For decades, the dead man was tied to eerie entrances, dead-eyed stares, and stories that blurred the line between reality and the supernatural. But the price for all those years was paid by his body. Knees, hips, back, everything worn down by countless bumps, surgeries, and never-ending tours. From around 2014 onward, the decline became noticeable. Undertaker still had that aura, but his footwork, timing, and ability to carry a full match weren't what they used to be. His later clashes with Roman Reigns, and especially that infamous bout with Goldberg, only made fans' worries grow. Moves didn't land cleanly, lifts and catches looked shaky, and every time Taker hit the mat, the crowd held its breath. Fans didn't want him to stop because they were tired of him. They wanted him to stop because they respected him. He had given enough, sacrificed more than most, and didn't need to keep risking his health just to prove something everyone already knew. The Undertaker is one of the greatest figures in WWE history. The biggest fear was that one awkward moment could lead to a serious injury for him, or even accidentally put his opponent in danger. Thankfully, in 2020, the conscience of WWE chose to put his own period at the end of that incredible journey. Instead of a traditional match, he closed his career with a boneyard match against AJ Styles at WrestleMania 36, a cinematic fight shot like a short film, hiding his physical limitations while preserving everything that made The Undertaker special: dark, mysterious, and unbreakable to the very last frame. It was exactly the kind of send-off fans could hardly improve on. His Hall of Fame induction afterward felt like the most fitting tribute possible. It gave the audience a chance to say a proper goodbye to the man who spent his entire career embodying a myth, and who finally stepped away at the right time, before age could erode the memories he worked so hard to create. Number 5. Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho is the textbook example of a wrestler who keeps reinventing himself over and over. From the loudmouthed Y2J at the end of the 90s, the guy who crashed the Rock celebration, to becoming the first undisputed champion in WWE history, Jericho always found a way to stand out. Throughout his career, he constantly changed characters, gear, and promo style. From the wisecracking loudmouth to the cold, suited villain, then the List of Jericho uncle, and later the dark, twisted painmaker. That ability to refresh his act kept him on top for more than 2 decades. But time catches everyone. In his later WWE days and then in AEW, Jericho's speed clearly dipped. His movement wasn't as smooth, lionsaults and springboards sometimes looked shaky, and in longer matches he often seemed to be pushing hard to keep pace with younger opponents. He could still deliver strong performances and big moments, but the overall physical level was no longer the same Chris Jericho who once tore the house down with Shawn Michaels or Rey Mysterio. At the same time, Jericho has been heavily featured in AEW, holding the world title, leading multiple factions, and frequently staying in the spotlight. That's where a portion of the fanbase started to feel worn out. They still respect his legacy, but they're also beginning to wish he'd step back and let others take center stage. Every time he gets another long storyline or main event slot, debates flare up online: how long should he stay at the very top? In truth, that feeling also comes from a place of affection. Fans want to see Chris Jericho finish as a legend, with a tight, well-written final chapter where he uses his name to elevate a new star, then walks away in a wave of applause. He still has his band, his podcast, and plenty of outside projects where he can shine without putting his body on the line. That's exactly why so many people are quietly waiting for the day Jericho says, "Thank you, one last time," and leaves the ring with his head held high. Number 4. Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy is the definition of reckless. From his early days teaming with Matt Hardy, he showed fans he was willing to throw his body through tables, off ladders, and over anything in sight just to hear the crowd explode. Those swanton bombs off the top of ladders, off the Titantron, or the image of Jeff crashing through a pile of broken tables stuck in people's minds far more than any championship ever could. When he finally became a world champion, it felt like a late reward for an entire youth spent using his own body as a weapon. But that wild style was a double-edged sword. Long-lasting injuries piled up, back, neck, knees, nothing was untouched. Add in his personal issues outside the ring, the suspensions and comebacks, and Jeff Hardy's path has always made people feel both admiration and sadness. Every time he came back, WWE, AEW, from one ladder match or tables match to another, the crowd still cheered, but deep down they were asking themselves, can he really take it this time? In the ring, Jeff is no longer the lightning-fast daredevil from those legendary TLC wars with the Dudleys and Edge and Christian. His steps are heavier, recovery takes longer, and every bump makes the audience hold their breath. And yet, because it's in his nature to paint one more final picture, he keeps diving into the most dangerous match types, the kind even a lot of younger wrestlers hesitate to do. Fans have started hoping their childhood hero will stop before one bad botch turns into a disaster that can't be undone. What they're waiting for isn't another crazy swanton, but a proper goodbye. One last match that's carefully put together, with a real story and emotion, where Jeff Hardy is honored as the man who sacrificed his body to make this business look spectacular. After that, they want to see him live healthy, as a trainer, a creative mind, or even a full-time musician, anything, as long as he doesn't have to keep trading pieces of his health for another bump off a ladder or through a wooden table that has already taken far too much from him. Number 3. Abdullah the Butcher. Mention Abdullah the Butcher and you're talking about one of the scariest monsters ever to step into a ring. With his massive frame, bald head carved with deep scars, and eyes that always looked ready to explode, Abdullah didn't just wrestle, he haunted people. At his peak, fans didn't come to his matches for holds or crisp sequences. They came to see knives, forks, steel chairs, broken tables, and blood splattered everywhere. When the name Abdullah the Butcher was announced, everyone knew they weren't about to watch pure wrestling, but a full-on execution. The problem is, that extreme style barely changed, even as age dragged down every step he took. At an age when most of his peers had long since retired, Abdullah was still shuffling out to small shows around the world. He'd hobble to the ring, fork in hand, ready to stab, scrape, and draw blood from his opponent, and himself, as if time had never passed. But instead of nervous excitement, more and more fans started feeling tired and embarrassed. The shock tactics that once stunned audiences now looked dated, and his body clearly wasn't built to keep absorbing fresh wounds. Many longtime fans will admit they respect what Abdullah did for hardcore wrestling, but every time they see him step through the ropes, one thought pops up: when is he finally going to rest? The deep grooves on his forehead, his slow, labored walk, and heavy breathing are living proof of the price he's paid over decades as the Butcher. Every fork jab, every drop of blood now feels less like a thrill and more like a reminder that he crossed the line of what was necessary a long time ago. Because of that, Abdullah the Butcher's legacy is a strange one. A true hardcore legend who pushed the limits of violence in wrestling farther than almost anyone else dared, but also a clear warning that if you stay in the ring too long, your own body and image are the first things to be worn down. Just one look at the scars carved all over his face is enough for fans to understand what that wild era cost, and how brutally it passed. Number 2. Sting. Sting is one of those rare names that instantly conjures up an entire era. The white face paint, the long coat, the baseball bat, and the silhouette standing silently high above, watching his enemies. From NWA and WCW to TNA, and later WWE and AEW, Sting has always been seen as the symbol of the lone hero standing against the darkness. At an age when many wrestlers are comfortably retired, he's still been willing to lace up his boots and step into the ring like time is just a number. But no one can forget the serious neck injury Sting suffered in his match with Seth Rollins in WWE, a seemingly routine move that nearly ended his career and could have had lasting consequences for his health. From that moment on, many fans thought, that's enough. Sting should stop here. A legend who gave his entire youth to this business didn't need to prove anything else, especially when every bump could carry serious risk. Yet, as if refusing to accept an ending in a medical room, Sting returned again, this time in AEW. He became a partner and mentor, but he also wrestled frequently in tag matches, sometimes in bouts involving ladders, tables, and chairs, the kind of matches even young wrestlers think twice about. Every time Sting dove through a table or jumped from a height, the roar of the crowd was followed by a collective breath being held. Fans were excited, but also genuinely scared for his back, neck, and shoulders, all of which have been punished for decades. That's why the feeling of being eager to see Sting retire is really about wanting him to have a safe, worthy farewell. Fans want that one last entrance under dim lights and thick smoke, the music hitting one more time, and then for him to lay the bat down, raise his hand to the crowd, and walk away without having to wake up the next morning with yet another new injury. With everything Sting has done for this art form, he deserves a truly beautiful ending, and fans have been waiting for that moment for a very, very long time. Number 1. John Cena. In the late 1990s, when he was still just a gym rat in California, John Cena walked into a wrestling school with one simple goal: to one day step into a WWE ring. He started grinding on the independent circuit and officially debuted in front of WWE fans in 2002. From the chain-wearing doctor of thugonomics, rapper to the company's franchise player, Cena slowly climbed his way up until he became the kind of face even casual, non-wrestling viewers could recognize instantly. Over more than 2 decades, Cena collected just about every accolade you can think of: 16 to 17 reigns as world champion, multiple United States title runs, tag team championships, 2 Royal Rumble wins, a Money in the Bank victory, and countless WrestleMania main events. He opened the door for countless Make-A-Wish moments, became the living embodiment of never give up, and was at the center of one of the most polarizing chants in history. Let's go Cena/Cena sucks. Love him or hate him, no one can deny that John Cena became the backbone of an entire WWE era. But the brutal schedule, the surgeries, and his constant drive to overcome the odds took their toll on his body. Once he shifted to a part-time role, every time the time is now hit, fans still stood up, but now with more gratitude and concern than ever before. His familiar sequences weren't as quick, his breathing was heavier, and Cena more and more often played the role of the veteran who lies down to elevate the next generation. Fans started thinking about a proper final chapter for him, before wear and tear could dull the shine of his peak years. Now, with John Cena's final match officially set for 6:30 on Sunday, December 14th, 2025, on Saturday night's main event, it feels like an entire era is about to close. The poster showing Cena with his eyes closed, clutching a title belt on his shoulder under the words, "The real champ, one last time," is more than just promotion. It's a farewell promise. At this point, fans don't really care whether he wins or loses. What they want is to see Cena walk down the aisle one more time, bow in front of a roaring crowd, and leave the ring the way a true champion should, head held high, after giving almost his entire youth to WWE. They're the kind of names that make fans both excited to see them show up, and at the same time hope they'll finally get the perfect ending they deserve. If you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to leave a like, drop a comment, and hit subscribe to Wrestling Sphere so we've got the motivation to bring you even more videos.